Have you ever looked around at a life that seems perfectly fine on paper, maybe even beautiful, but you still felt this nagging, heavy sense of emptiness?
Oh, yeah, like a hollow feeling.
Exactly. Like you've checked all the right boxes, you're sitting in a comfortable room, but something deep inside is just quietly whispering that you're in the wrong place.
Right. And you
Yeah.
try to fix it, right?
Yeah. You try to buy some new throw pillows or, I don't know, change up your morning routine. You try to practice gratitude, but that feeling just stays parked right in your chest.
It is a profoundly unsettling feeling, to be honest.
Mm.
And it's one that almost all of us experience at some point, yet we're rarely taught how to actually decode it.
We just think something's broken.
Exactly.
Mm.
Our instinct is to treat that emptiness as a malfunction. We pathologize it or we try to, numb it out. We don't recognize it as a highly sophisticated diagnostic tool.
Well, today we are extracting the survival mechanics of that exact feeling from kind of an unlikely place. We're taking a deep dive into a piece of source material called The Journey, Big Panda and Tiny Dragon by James Norbury.
Which is such a fascinating choice for this.
It really is, because if you just glance at the cover, you might assume this is just a simple children's book. The visual language uses these gorgeous minimalist ink-wash paintings, but make no mistake, this is a psychological survival manual disguised as a fable.
It absolutely is.
Oh, yeah?
It operates on a level that speaks directly to the adult experience of navigating transition.
Mm-hmm.
It uses the narrative of these two characters to deliver really a masterclass on the neurobiology of change.
And mindfulness, too.
Yeah, and just the sheer brutal resilience required to rewrite your own life.
So, the mission for our deep dive today is to unpack the ancient wisdom hidden in this narrative and apply it to the mechanics of the human mind. We're going to follow Big Panda and Tiny Dragon through a physical and emotional journey that goes to some, frankly, surprisingly dark places.
Very dark places, yeah.
We'll pull out the practical insights on why your brain prefers familiar misery to unknown potential, the psychological baggage you cling to, and the terrifying reality of starting over. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's start with the setting, because it perfectly captures that initial feeling of unearned emptiness we were just talking about.
Great.
So Big Panda and Tiny Dragon live together in an ancient mountain temple. It's completely idyllic. They're surrounded by a vast forest and a deep, still lake.
Sounds nice.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And they have this lovely, predictable routine. Like during the day, they explore the tangled forests. And at night, they sit under the stars and drink hot tea that Tiny Dragon carefully prepares.
Yeah, it looks like absolute paradise.
Yeah.
The illustrations show these serene, misty mountains. But then, one winter evening, under a full moon, Tiny Dragon looks around and confesses something to Panda.
A very heavy confession.
He says, this place is incredible. The trees, the birds, it's magical. So why do I feel incomplete?
Which is an incredibly vulnerable admission.
It really is. In our own lives, when we have a quote-unquote good situation, a stable job, a decent relationship, we often feel immense guilt for being unhappy. We just tell ourselves we should be grateful.
Right, and what's fascinating here is Big Panda's reaction to that confession. He doesn't try to fix Tiny Dragon's feelings. He doesn't offer, toxic positivity or tell him to count as blessing.
Good vibes only stuff.
Exactly. He simply says, "That is a good question, little one." And the answer is simple, yet difficult. And then the next morning, Panda completely validates the feeling. He says the important thing is that you have noticed something is wrong.
Just acknowledging the feeling without judging it.
Precisely. Panda frames this emotional discomfort not as a failure of gratitude, but as a biological signal. He tells Tiny Dragon, problems should not stop us. They're simply nature's way of letting us know we need to explore a different path.
Which makes sense scientifically, right?
Totally. From a psychological perspective, our brains are prediction machines. They love homeostasis. They love the predictable routine of the temple.
Because predictable means safe.
Right. But when that routine no longer serves our growth, the subconscious mind generates feelings of discontent to force us out of that homeostasis. And Panda introduces a central metaphor here. He compares the mind to a garden.
Oh, I love this part.
He says, left to its own devices, it will soon become overrun with weeds. And where there are too many weeds, flowers cannot grow.
So basically the solution is action. Panda says they can't just sit there and hope the weeds go away. They actually have to leave the garden and cross the Great River to find a new path.
Right.
Now, this mind as a garden concept, it really reminds me of technical debt in software engineering.
Oh, that's an interesting connection. How so?
Well, you write some clunky code just to get a program running quickly. It works, so you leave it. But over the years, You build your whole system on top of that buggy foundation because fixing it means taking the whole system offline.
Right, which nobody wants to do.
Exactly. Stagnation is comfortable in the short term, but eventually the debt comes due and the system just suffocates itself. You have to endure the pain of taking it offline to rewrite it.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. The weeds are the technical debt of our psyche.
But I do have to push back on Panda slightly here. I mean, is it really that binary? Just noticing you're unhappy means you have to uproot your whole life, abandon your home, and cross a massive, dangerous river.
It sounds extreme.
It feels incredibly extreme. Like, why not just pull the weeds while staying in the temple?
Well, because often the environment itself is what's fertilizing the weeds.
Yeah.
Think about how we operate, right?
Mm-hmm.
We try to pull a few weeds by taking a vacation, or we start a new hobby.
Right, buying those throw pillows.
Exactly. But we refuse to leave the garden. Pulling the root means facing the unknown. Panda tells Tiny Dragon, change, even if you don't know where it will lead, is better than stagnation.
Better than stagnation. Wow.
Yeah. The river represents the threshold between the life you know and the growth you desperately need. Crossing it requires immense effort, and neurobiologically, our brains will fight that effort tooth and nail.
Because of that homeostasis again.
Right. Most people would rather sit in an overgrown, unhappy garden than endure the terror of stepping into the wild.
And stepping into the wild brings up the logistics of that uprooting, which kind of brings us to the preparation for the journey. This part of the source material is deeply revealing about human nature.
Oh, it really is.
Tiny Dragon packs this tiny wooden cart, and it is comically overstuffed. He's got like an umbrella, a lantern, a chest, and specifically his beloved tea set and a framed picture of Grandpa Dragon. He is packing to protect himself from the elements.
And Panda just looks at this massive pile of stuff and gently shakes his head. He tells him everything you need is already inside you.
Which is very zen, but I like that Panda isn't a rigid ascetic about it. Like when Tiny Dragon protests that he absolutely needs these things, Panda compromises.
He does, yeah.
He says, there is nothing wrong with enjoying the fruits of the world. We just need to make sure we do not lose ourselves in them.
It's a crucial psychological distinction. I mean, the danger isn't in owning a tea set.
Yeah.
The danger is the illusion of control.
Right.
We pack external things to manage internal anxiety. We genuinely believe we cannot survive the unknown without our familiar props.
It perfectly mirrors how we pack for major life transitions. Like, if you are shifting to a new career or leaving a long-term relationship, you tend to cling to these security blankets.
No, absolutely.
We hold on to old job titles or, the way people used to perceive us, or even just our rigid daily routines, stacking them up in our mental carts. We think they'll protect us from the reign of the unknown.
And the tragic irony is that dragging that heavy cart actually prevents you from engaging with the journey itself. You are so focused on protecting the baggage that you miss the present moment.
You can't see the forest for the trees.
Exactly. And we see a brilliant contrast to this when they finally reach the banks of the great river. They make fire, and Tiny Dragon is poking the embers with a stick. And he asks Panda why he doesn't get the same profound pleasure from collecting sticks now that he did when he was a very tiny dragon.
And Panda explains that it's all about the mechanics of focus, right?
Yes.
When he was young, the simple task of finding the best sticks took every single ounce of his attention. It kept his mind from wandering, and that created a sense of inner stillness.
That is a beautiful distillation of how mindfulness operates on a neurological level.
How so?
Well, in neuroscience, there's a network in the brain called the default mode network. It activates when our minds wander, and it's heavily associated with rumination, anxiety, and worrying about the past or the future.
So that's the anxiety network.
Pretty much. But when you are fully absorbed in a task, like collecting sticks, you activate the task positive network. And you cannot be in both states at once. Presence literally shuts down the anxiety network.
That makes total sense. When you force your brain into the task positive state, you basically manufacture peace. But, presence is easy when you're just collecting sticks. It is incredibly hard when you're staring down a major obstacle.
Oh, for sure.
Because the morning of the crossing, they're eating bamboo, and Tiny Dragon is staring at this massive river.
Yeah.
And he just plainly admits it. He says, I'm afraid I don't want to cross.
Which is so honest.
Yeah. And Panda drops what might be the heaviest truth of this whole deep dive. He says it's natural to be scared, but sometimes we must carry on anyway. Fear will not stop you dying, but it may stop you from living.
Wow. This raises an important question for all of us, How many times have we let the fear of a metaphorical river keep us trapped on the shore?
Too many to count.
Right. Fear is an evolutionary mechanism meant to keep us alive in dangerous environments. But in the modern world, it often just keeps us stagnant. Panda is acknowledging that the goal isn't to become fearless.
Because that's impossible.
Biologically impossible, yeah. The danger is letting the fear paralyze you into a state of non-living.
Right. You can sit on the bank in total safety, your heart rate nice and low, but you're kind of dead inside. The technical debt is still compounding.
Exactly.
So they push past the paralysis. They spend the day building a small raft out of bamboo and logs. And Panda looks at the raft and notes where it's been doesn't have to determine where it's going. The past is just a story. They can write a new one now.
It's a wonderful sentiment about agency. But nature and reality do not care about our beautiful sentiment.
No, they do not.
Because the moment they get on the water, the chaotic reality of change hits them.
And it is brutal. A massive, violent storm rolls in from nowhere. The sky turns black, chilling wind, icy, freezing rain. Water turns into this ragged froth. Their little bamboo raft begins to spin and buck.
It's a nightmare scenario.
Tiny Dragon is absolutely terrified, just clinging on for dear life with his eyes screwed shut.
And contrast that with Big Panda. He lays out flat to lower their center of gravity, tucks Tiny Dragon into his fur to keep him warm, and he remains calm. He says, "Maybe once I was scared, but I've survived them all. I've learned that I don't need to be afraid."
But then tragedy strikes. Tiny Dragon opens one eye and sees the cloth wrapping his precious tea set get caught on a sharp piece of wood. The tea set breaks free, tumbles into the dark, churning water, and just vanishes.
Heartbreaking.
And the text says, as he watched it vanish into the black, churning depths, he felt as though his heart had followed it. He buries his face in his hands and sobs. Now, honestly, I have to push back here.
Okay, go for it.
They are in a ragged froth of a freezing ocean. Survival is literally minute by minute, and he is paralyzed by sobbing over a porcelain tea set. I mean, from a biological survival standpoint, that is completely irrational. The brain should be pumping adrenaline to hold on, not, grief over tableware.
I get that. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to realize that to the brain, the loss of identity is a survival threat.
Wait, really?
Yes. That tea set isn't just porcelain. Remember the cart. That tea set represents the comfort of the temple, the safety of his routine, and his core identity as the one who carefully prepared the tea every night.
Oh, I see.
Watching it sink is the brutal realization that the old life is truly gone. The bridge is burned.
So it's essentially a psychological sunk cost fallacy applied to his identity. He's not mourning the object. He's mourning the equity he built into his past self.
Yes.
He is experiencing ego death in real time.
Exactly. And ego death transcends immediate physical danger. It feels like a literal death to the psyche. And look at how Panda handles this. Panda is exhausted. He barely has the strength to speak, and if he lets go, they both wash into the foaming water.
Right.
But Panda doesn't try to fix the pain. He doesn't say, "Cheer up, it's just a tea set, at least we're alive."
Which is exactly what we always do to our friends when they are hurting. We try to logic them out of their grief.
We do, because their grief makes us uncomfortable. But Panda practices radical acceptance. He knows that even the greatest storm will pass. He simply holds space for the grief to exist without trying to shut it down, while simultaneously holding the line on their survival.
Radical acceptance, that's a clinical term, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
In psychology, specifically dialectical behavior therapy, radical acceptance is the ability to accept reality exactly as it is without fighting it or judging it. You don't have to like it, but you have to accept it to survive it.
Just surviving the moment until the storm blows itself out. And eventually it does. By morning, the storm is gone. They're drifting aimlessly on glassy waters, swept out into the endless ocean.
And Tiny Dragon panics again.
Yeah, because they're lost. But Panda says this is not where we would choose to be, but it is where we are. He tells him to close his eyes, feel the water lapping against the raft, feel the sun and the breeze.
He is manually switching Tiny Dragon's brain back into the task-positive network.
Oh, that makes sense.
When you cannot control the macro, the fact that you are lost at sea, you have to focus on the micro. The warmth of the sun, the breeze. Acceptance brings great peace because it stops the useless expenditure of energy fighting reality.
And that energy conservation allows them to survive until they finally reach a new shore. They wake up to find the raft beached on white sand with high, dark mountains rising in the distance. They survived.
A massive milestone.
Yeah, and immediately we see a shift in Tiny Dragon. The baseline for his dopamine has completely reset. He finds a winding stream with fresh water and some sweet red berries. He says, "I never imagined I'd have been so grateful for food and drink."
A crucible strips away all the excess. When the tea sets and the familiar comforts are gone, the baseline of survival becomes a profound source of joy.
But the brain still craves homeostasis, right? Because nostalgia pulls at him. He looks at this beautiful sunrise and says, "So how far is it back to the temple? We have to go home."
He wants the comfort back.
Exactly. And Panda has to lay down a harsh truth. He says, "We cannot go home. This is a new world, somewhere we have never been, and somewhere from which we can never return."
The threshold is crossed.
Mm.
Through the trauma and survival of the river, neuroplasticity has occurred. His brain has rewired itself. You are fundamentally a different person after the storm. You cannot unexperience the journey.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because most fables, most self-help narratives, they would end right here.
Oh, absolutely.
They're on the beach, eating berries, they've accepted the flow of the universe, roll credits. Panda even points to a stream flowing around a rock and says, "The water is taking the gentlest path to its destination. We can be the same."
Sounds like a nice ending.
Right, but this source material doesn't let us off the hook that easily.
No, it refuses to indulge in the arrival fallacy.
The arrival fallacy.
Yeah, it's the myth that reaching a new destination instantly cures your inner landscape.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because the text explicitly says, despite the wisdom in his words, his heart was heavy. Inside, he felt he'd lost everything. He was utterly empty.
So heavy.
Even with the fresh start, Tiny Dragon finds little comfort. And then the rain comes back, the sky darkens, and they have to start climbing the mountain.
The contradiction here is just staggering. Panda just philosophized about taking the gentlest path, like the water. But the physical reality of their journey is a brutal, steep, muddy climb.
There's no gentle path.
No, there is no path. Panda's paws are slipping in the thick mud. Thunder cracks the sky open. Rain falls in great sheets.
It is relentless. The rain is lashing the stone, and in the middle of this awful climb, Tiny Dragon stops speaking. He doesn't even feel the rain anymore. He can barely hear Big Panda's voice. The narrative ends with this haunting image of the tiny dragon on the back of the panda in the pouring rain.
It's a stark image.
And it says, "He felt alone and empty in a world that meant nothing." So, I mean, what does this all mean? We went on this massive, painful journey to pull the weeds, we crossed the river, we let go of the tea set, and he still feels empty.
It means the journey is continuous. Surviving a major life change, doing everything right and being mindful, it doesn't grant you immunity from the friction of existence.
Right.
Growth is not a linear path to a permanent state of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that starting over is exhausting. It is muddy and steep, and sometimes, even when you have shed your baggage, you will still feel completely hollow inside. Arriving at the new shore is just the base camp for the next climb.
Man, it's a tough pill to swallow, but it's so much more scientifically and emotionally honest than a fairy tale ending.
It really is.
Okay, let's bring all of this together for you listening. We started in the overgrown garden of comfort, realizing that the nagging sense of emptiness is actually a biological signal, an alarm bell that your technical debt has come due. We packed our carts, learning that we use external identities to manage internal fear. We learned that we have to cross the river even when we are terrified, because fear is designed to keep us alive, but it shouldn't stop us from living.
Exactly.
We faced the storm, experiencing the ego death of losing our tea sets, and learned that radical acceptance is the only way through. And finally, we washed up on a new shore, only to realize the arrival fallacy. Growth is a continuous, relentless climb up a muddy mountain.
And that emptiness Tiny Dragon feels at the end, it isn't a sign of failure. It is the blank space of a newly cleared garden, waiting for new seeds.
Exactly. So for you listening right now, whatever great river you are currently facing, maybe it's a terrifying career pivot, a cross-country move, or a creative endeavor you are just paralyzed by. The fear you feel standing on the bank is just your brain doing its job. But do not let it stop you from building the raft.
And as you stand on that bank, I want you to consider a phenomenon in nature called serotiny.
Serotiny.
Yeah. There are certain trees, like the lodgepole pine, whose pine cones are completely sealed shut with a thick resin. They can fall to the ground, sit in the perfect soil, and do absolutely nothing.
Just sit there.
Just sit there.
Mm-hmm.
The only way those seeds can ever germinate is if they're exposed to the intense, destructive heat of a forest fire.
Oh, wow.
Only then does the resin melt, allowing the new life to begin. So ask yourself, what if the destruction of your old identity, the loss of your tea set, is the exact biological trigger required to germinate the next version of yourself?
What a profound thought to leave on. Remember, a life that looks perfect on paper doesn't mean much if the garden is suffocating you. Don't be afraid to pull the weeds, keep climbing the mountain, and keep seeking out those deep dives into your own life. We'll catch you on the next one.